So, I have been working on this project for almost a year now. This is a Boyd stock, and I've put it, I'm using it on a Savage Axis heavy barrel 308. So I've already done a lot of modifications to the stock. And just for a quick recap, if you haven't seen the other past videos, I pillar mounted it, bedded the stock, replaced all the plastic pieces, including developing this the 6061 aluminum piece that replaces that front clip, the mounting clip. Replaced the plastic, and even bedded the trigger guard area. Replaced the butt pad, and I've been filing this piece away here on the pistol grip on the palm area. And the reason why I'm doing that, when I initially got the stock and I would grip it, my finger was just barely on the tip of the trigger. So I've been filing it down, trying to move it up a little bit where I can at least, engage the trigger with the flat of my finger. And it's getting there, but let me see if you can see it from this other side. So I got to where I could at least reach the trigger, but I still find myself shoving my hand forward, which is kind of counterintuitive. I want to be able to grip this stock and seat it against my shoulder. But with this, I'm still reaching out, so I'm kind of pushing the rifle away from me. And also you can see where the curve of the pistol grip, when I grip this, there's actually a big gap right in the center there where I'm not really getting a good grip. So I've been working on that, and let me show you what my solution is. So I was brainstorming on what I could do with this stock. Could I add on some wood to it? Can I find some rubberized grip from some other application that I can attach to it, or build it up, or use tape or whatever, to essentially get rid of that gap and move the center point of the grip forward, right? And while I was thinking, I ended up making a mold out of Play-Doh. So I put the Play-Doh around, molded it the way I want, even put finger grips on it. Inserted it in, had it all, trying to look as good as it could, but I put it on there, and it felt great. It filled a gap. It gave me a really good snug feel with these fingers on the grip, and my finger was right on the trigger, right? It worked pretty well. Of course, so this is Play-Doh. I tried to harden it up a little bit, but of course it's going to shrink. It's going to get real brittle and start falling apart. But it was a good verification. So I looked around, and this is what I found. This is Epoxy Sculpt, and because at first I was thinking, well, what if I use modeling clay, and get what I want out of it? But don't think modeling clay after it dries up it's going to be ruggedized or anything. It's not going to work. Well, I found this Epoxy Sculpt, and it's a two-part clay-like. It's epoxy based, and you mold it. You mix them all together, and it gives you about 2 hours of time before it sets, and which is about perfect. I mean, I don't think I'd need any more than that. It does not shrink when it dries, and once it dries, it's very hard. It will adhere to wood, metal, glass, whatever, just like epoxy. So I'll just make sure I sand down the area that it's going to cover to make sure it sticks. But once it's hardened, then you can file it, sand it, use a Dremel tool, and touch it up. So this is what I'm going to use. quick notes. When I'm putting all this together, it's good to start with too much rather than not enough, and you can take away some. Make sure you have, when you're kneading this and mixing them together, make sure it's all uniform and make sure you don't have any air bubbles. What else? To start with, it's very soft, surprisingly soft and malleable. So, but I'm sure it's going to start thickening pretty quickly. I'm just trying to get rid of all the little creases. And imperfections. And once again, even if it starts to dry, that's fine as long as I got the shape I want, because I can always sand it back down. And right now it feels like it's kind of huge. So I have a lot of surplus here, but so that means I could probably do 3 of these out of that one batch, which is not bad. They come in batches of a pound. And you can see how it's kind of taking shape. But it feels really good. It's still very malleable right now. So I've given this 12 hours, about 12 to 14 hours or so to cure and harden up. And it's definitely has a good feel to it. It's definitely hardened up a little bit. You can see that's how it turned out. You can see this, that little curved part it's all filled up. When you look straight on, you can see the bulge here, and that's to fit the palm of my hand. So it fits pretty good. It actually feels like a pistol. Now this, it is kind of thick on this side. You know, you can, once it's formed and you get a really good feel, I guess putting on more is better than not enough. So now I can go, if I want, and sand all this down, shape it up, get rid of any imperfections on it. And there are a few, not many. Because during the process, after when you first start, it's real sticky, and it does get on you. After about an hour, it starts to harden up, and it's not hard yet. But after an hour, you know, you can tell you can really start molding it and getting it to where you want, and that's probably the ideal time. After a couple of hours, I started to, after I got the shape I want, I started to lightly rub it to get rid of any imperfections. After that, I just let it, I just left it overnight for 12 hours. I say to give 24 hours, but you can tell it's definitely hardened up. One thing to note, once you have it on there, if you're going to start sanding it off, you can see it'll start discoloring like this, right? So when you first start getting some sandpaper out and try to smooth things out, you'll see how it'll kind of discolor. But treat it like any other surface you're going to do. Start with a high grain sandpaper and get finer and finer as you go, and you'll see once you get some steel wool and start buffing it out, then the color will start coming back. But from what I've seen, it's not going to be a deep black like that. This is, I guess this is the 4/0 steel wool. and it will polish it, but it does change the color a bit. So if you're really stuck on the color, go ahead and do your sanding. Do the steel wool, and if you still don't, you know, if you wanted a different color, it is paintable. So you can use paint or Duracoat or Cerakoted or anything like that. But overall, it's coming out pretty good. So here is the finished product. So you can see when I take a grip, my finger is really wrapped around the trigger here. You know, maybe you'll see it better from this angle. So now I can take a good solid grip and my finger is really wrapped around the trigger here. Before it was back here somewhere and I was barely getting the tip of my finger. Oh. But it feels solid. I can really take a really good grip at it and seat it against my shoulder instead of trying to get it to my shoulder and I was pushing it forward trying to reach the trigger. So I'm pretty pleased. You can see it fits the palm. The bulge here fits the palm really well. I might sand a little bit off on this side because it is a big meaty grip right now, and it might be more comfortable if I sand some of this down and take some of the thickness off of this side, take some of the meat out of it. But overall, I'm pretty pleased. So, tell me what you think.